again. Welcome to our third lecture together, discussing subject matter in our Unit 3 of the UGRC150 course. This is main campus, group 15. I would want you to keep your things, otherwise I'll disable the mic. We are on recording now. Keep it muted, okay? So that you can benefit, just in case we share all those recordings. So my name is Dr. Nancy Miles Bafo-Jemfi, Senior Lecturer of the Department of Philosophy and Classics. Also currently the coordinator of the course UGRC150 and the examiner, also a lecturer on the team with colleagues. I'm glad to serve you our third unit. On your screen now, you'd see very good. I want to go back to where we were before we came back to revise the equivocation. So you will see types of discourse. Your text identifies 4 types of discourse. Discourse here means passages, a collection of expressions or statements, not just a single one, collection of them. Now, what we have studied so far in Unit 1 and which we have built on in Unit 2, when we look at definitions, were statements or sentences. I mean, a question is a sentence, a collection of words that have a complete thought. Okay. So when we did sentences, statements, what have you, we're dealing with one complete expression. But in this unit, as the third unit, we are dealing with passages, so a collection of such statements. Now, when we have a collection of statements, sometimes we are narrating, sometimes we are instructing. Look on my screen, please. I'm teaching with the screen. Sometimes it's just a rhetorical polemic, strong, emotive, expression captured into a passage, and sometimes we are actually arguing. Okay. So what then is a narrative? If it's a narrative, then it just means that passage is telling you how something happened in the sequence in which it did happen. Okay, so it's a report of how it happened. So the whole passage is telling you. So this morning I woke up early, I took my breakfast, I went to drop the children, I came to the office, and I am teaching. This passage is not arguing, it's narrating, it's a narrative. Okay, so that is what we mean. Sometimes the passage is not narrating, but it is instructing, telling you how to get it done. Remember operational definition in Unit 2, something around that. Okay, so it's a collection of expressions, statements, sentences put together, which has constituted a passage. But this passage we call an instruction, only tells you how to get it done. So when you have a passage like that, and there are several examples in text, we are just summarily giving you information. You can look at it, the textbook soft copies at your resource tool there. Find several narratives there, clearly labeled narratives to help you see. Okay. Then you could have a passage that is not instructing, it's not narrating, but it is doing what? It is strong, look on my screen, communicates a strong feeling or persuasively vents an opinion. The way it captures it, it is emotional. Africa must unite. How can we be constantly blah, 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 blah? This cannot go on. Africa must unite, something like that. It's called a rhetorical polemic or polemical rhetoric. Sweet language with strong, usually strong feeling associated with it. Who at all put these people into power? One day God will punish people. That's an emotive expression. But when you put it into a passage, we don't want to just call it emotive expression. We call it rhetorical polemic or polemical rhetoric. Okay. Then it takes us to the one that is of interest to the critical thinker, which is what? Argument. An argument is a technical word. Let me quickly tell you that it is not this. Look on your screen. Not exchange of words or aggressive language or domination of others, intimidation, win at all costs posture. No, but that's not argument. As we are using it technically. Here again, you see an equivocation of the word argue. Because you can see this guy likes arguing too much. You are addressing a different connotation, a different meaning of the word argument. Just like inflation. When the economist is talking inflation, he's not talking about blowing a balloon. We inflate balloons or tires, but there's a technical meaning that the economists, our Minister of Finance and IMF and the whole Ghana now talk inflation. You think it's about going to blow balloons for decorations at a party? No, the word is the same. The meanings or the connotations are not the same. So we want you to be minded to understand that when we say argument, in this our technical use of the term critical thinking, which is logic for that matter, of philosophy. I'm not talking exchange of words or the demeanor we have on the screen. No. What then is it? That is what we have given you earlier. What then is argument? It is what, I take you back. It is when you have a passage that contains what? A single conclusion. We are trying not to make the whole thing too cumbersome. I don't like teaching with too many, the thing is too complex. No, you understand that from our discussions in definitions. You look at your target group, you look at how you present that content to be accessible. Accessibility is key. It's not proving any point. I mean, my friend is saying, the poor level 100s who have just entered university are still finding your footing. I was in level 100 decades back. Okay, so there's no reason to prove anything. So just get the simple presentations of content that we give you. Then when you get the grasp of the main concept, now you are able to build on it. And that is effective and it remains, especially for a course that doesn't have continuity the whole year. Like it's not like you do it 200, 300, 400. It's just a one-off general course the university requires everyone to do. So you have to get the core matches in an accessible way for it to be useful, friends, in your discipline. That's the target. So what is an argument? It just means you have a passage. Listen, that passage has a claim that you are making. You're trying to say something. But you have also added the reason why you're saying what you're saying all together in that one passage. That is what an argument is. It means you have given reasons why you are saying something. So what you are saying is there, and the reasons. Now I'm going to change from reasons to give you the technical, the premises. That's the technical language. The premises are the reasons grounding the claim, the conclusion that you are making. Okay. So every argument on my screen now, every argument has premises leading to what? Conclusion. The premises are the reasons, you can call them the evidence, they are all there. Look on your screen. They are all there. Okay. That ground the conclusion you are drawing. The conclusion is also called the claim. Now, no matter how many subdivisions of conclusions you may have to build on to another and blah, 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 ultimately, there is only one conclusion to every argument. Only one. What do you ultimately want to say? I always reference the Bible thing in Ecclesiastes. It says, this is the end of the matter. This is the conclusion of the matter. Love God, obey his commandment. You need to. That's the end of the matter. From Genesis to Revelation, we can preach in skirmishes, the tithe and the this and this, all of that ultimately ends with one thing. Love God, obey his commandment. Finished. That's the conclusion of the matter. If you like do fasting for 100 days, well done. But if you finish and you can't love God and obey him, it's a non-sequitur, my friend would say. It's useless. So if you have that thinking, you will see that then the whole crusade and camp meeting and what have you are ultimately revolving around trying to establish this claim that I love God and obeying his commandment. If it is not about that, you have missed it. conclusion. That's all I'm teaching. The political party will go for primaries and so and so and so and so, campaign, this, all the up and down, meeting people, gathering, whatever. Ultimately is what? Vote for me. Vote for me. That's all. The whole thing, the conclusion is one. Now, if it is football, what's the conclusion of the matter? Score a goal. Score. Let the ball, the full circumference of the ball enter the net. Finished. That is the conclusion of the matter. So if you got those funny instances, or if you like practical instances I'm trying to put in, then understand that whenever we argue, there is one thing we are trying to say, which is called the conclusion or the claim. CLAIM. What am I claiming? That's the conclusion. And then the rest, which can be one or several, are called what? Premise or premises. You can call it reasons. You can call it evidence. There is therefore an inferential relationship, big word, nothing much, a connection between what I'm saying and how I'm grounding what I'm saying. That is what we call what? Argument. You see, then the argument is not instruction, and it is not narrative, and it's not rhetorical, polemical rhetoric. So words like, look on my screen, please. Words like thus, hence, therefore, so, as a result, consequently, and so on and so. If you look into your text, you see them, they are there. They indicate, they point to the conclusion in that argument. They let you see what the conclusion may be. All women like mangoes, and my mother is a woman, so she will like mangoes. If I argue that way, how do you know it's an argument? I'm trying to say, mommy likes mangoes. Remember, I said, so she likes mango. That's what I want to say. I want to say she likes mango, but I have to give you reasons to convince you. I say, oh, but she's a woman, and all women like mango. That is an argument. You clearly know your conclusion, and then when you pull out the conclusion, the rest are premises that help you to now start work as a critical thinker to see whether, if the premises were true, will it ground that conclusion or not? Then we start that work later. Okay, but for now, you have to be able to know premise, indicator, conclusion indicator, sorry. Okay, so we know those earlier indicator words as conclusion words, but the next one down there is what? Premise indicators. When you see them, they point to, they blink to show you that, hey, there's a premise here, likely premise here. Then you can now critically look at it to confirm. Words like since, if, because, provided, given that, for the reason that, these are all indicative of what? Premises. I have explained this one on your screen now, so I'll move on. I hope everyone can see my screen. You may unmute and respond, just to be sure if people can see. We are moving on. Yes. Can you see? Yeah. Excellent.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, please, we can see.
All right, thank you. So I move on. So just a little bit more elaboration on what an argument then is. I've said this. What an argument simply means is making a claim and giving reasons why that claim should be accepted. Okay, that's an argument. I've gone on further. All I said earlier is what is projecting now. Conclusion called claim, look there. Then the part of the argument that supports or justifies or proves, depending on the degree of certainty, is what we call premise. I've stopped sharing. Let me reshare again. I thought I had one or two no's there. Please keep your gadget active. Okay? Touch it. If you let it remain docile for a while, your screen will go off, and it cannot be Miles's issue. Okay, it will be your issue. I've reshared. You should see now. Right. So look at the words. The part of an argument that supports or justifies or proves with reasons is called what? The premise. While the part that is what you want to say, the claim being made, is called the conclusion. Those who want to be lawyers, this is very important for you. You have to be able to present your conclusion. Everybody is going to do a thesis of a kind, either long essay or write-up, or you have to have a clear, A clear what? Thesis statement. That's the conclusion of your whole, maybe 300-page dissertation, or depending on if it's a 50-page, 10 paper, whatever. Your thesis must be clear. Your problem, what you are saying, what do you want to say? That's the conclusion of the matter. Then how do you want to ground what you want to say? That those are your premises. Okay, if it's the State of the Nation's address, it would ultimately have a conclusion. If you were a journalist and you were interviewing someone, you would want to tease out what is the conclusion. If it's a conference you attend, you see, I'm showing you the practical reasoning part of the course critical thinking. It's not just we knowing the critical thinking, but how we can practically apply this. You went for a 4-day conference on behalf of Ghana as maybe the gender minister or whatever. When you come and we meet you at the place there and we ask you you have to be able to give us a concise conclusion in those maybe 50 seconds or something that the media outlet has given you. And it's not a cheap job until you are able to groom yourself that way. You will miss out key things, you see, which will make it look like we wasted our resources making you go. But you can use the 30 seconds or so public viewing to capture the conclusion, highlight the key premises of the conference. Conference held for days. Oh, I think that we've had a good time focusing on how women and the economy work hand in hand. And I think the key things we have highlighted to ensure that women do that, women get that, and men do this to help women, and then the women themselves have this, that, and that is what the ministry is going to spearhead going forward. That done. You see, it is argumentation skill, the skill of arguing. You have a short time to talk to people before, or to present your product to people before the car moves. You see how some people can sell their own. Short, sometimes the car is almost full, and yet everybody in the car is buying that bread. It's the skill of argumentation. So see how practical it is, and then we can now move on. Now, okay, keep your thing muted, please. Who is this? To give you feedback, so when you are playing back, okay? So don't let me keep going back and forth like that. All right, I'll mute all again. I hope it stays muted. Now, argument, you can distinguish it from all the other types of passages. Those, I see your hand up, I'll take it shortly. Let's wrap up nicely. So we know the 4 passages, and here are some examples for you. Go to read it, and then you can ask your question afterwards. Read the examples of argument on your screen.
Okay. Arguments. 1. All students write exams. Amma is a student, so she writes exams.
Very
2.
good. The second one now.
Most Ghanaians are hospitable. My mother is a Ghanaian, therefore she's hospitable.
Well
Note
done.
that sometimes, if the premises are true, it becomes necessary to accept the conclusion also.
Yes. When we have that instance that Gozo just read, Francis Gozo just read, where as soon as you accept the premises as true, if you were to accept it as true, it will require that you accept the conclusion also as true necessarily. Then that type of argument is described as deductive argument. It becomes a deduction. D for Daniel, deduction, a type of argument now. But sometimes, even if you accepted the premises as true, it will not require of you necessarily to accept the conclusion. Then we would say it is only an inductive argument, induced. So look at those 2 types of arguments closely a bit more in due course. Please ask your question, Francis. Brenda, be on standby. See your hand up.
Please, my question is that about the argument, I'm a bit confused because you said 2 different things. So can you say it again and combine?
Are you are you sure the person said 2 things or you heard 2 things? I want you to be minded of our language. So I'll help us. We'll mentor ourselves.
Okay.
You heard.
Okay,
I
heard
two
about
things.
2 things.
I heard 2 things. It's not the same as you said 2 things. Sometimes God spoke once. We heard it twice. Once have I spoken?
Okay.
Once has God spoken, twice have I heard. So ask the question. What is the question? Don't make claims. Now you understand claim. Don't say you said this. That's a statement. That can be either true. You see that? But ask. No, did you say this and that? That's a question. Legitimate. How can I help Bozo now? What is the confusion you have in mind?
About the argument definition. In the
Yes.
first one, we were talking about the claims, and the second one too is a different thing. So I wanted you
What
to.
was the different thing? What was the different thing in the second one?
I kind of not remember, but I from the way you
Boss,
I heard it.
listen.
Okay.
Listen. Look on the screen now. Read this. Okay.
An argument is the set of okay. An argument simply means making a claim and giving reasons why that claim should be accepted.
Very good. What is another word for claim from what we have discussed so far? Sorry, please.
Making your stand.
No, another word. An argument has two parts. What are they? Claim and the reasons. Or if you don't want to say claim and reasons, what else can you use to define? I want a chorus answer now. Everyone on mute and respond. The two parts of an argument.
Conclusion and evidence.
Premises and conclusion.
Very good.
Conclusion.
You are all correct.
Conclusion.
You are all correct. Excellent. My dear friend, so you see, if I don't say claim, I could say conclusion. I'm saying the same thing. It's not different. My name is Dr. Nancy Miles. If you call me Nancy, it is me. If you call me Miles, it's me. If you call me Bafo, it's me. If you call me Jim, it's me. So it's not different. It's just different referencing. The thing is not different. Okay, so claim can also be called conclusion. And reasons can also be called premises or evidence. Look on my screen now. Big boss. And everyone else. Okay. So that you don't think it's a difference. So every argument has two parts. Conclusion, which is the claim being made. You see there? And then premises, which is the reasons or evidence intended to support the claim. The reasons or evidence is what you are using to do the support. That's why it is called the premise. It holds the claim, what you are saying together. It gives it stance. The same thing is said up here, differently, but it's the same thing we are saying. Watch. Argument is a set of statements, only one of which is the conclusion. Again, I put it there. The conclusion is also called the claim. What has the conclusion done? Which one, you and I, attempts to support. So I try to support my conclusion or my claim, or I justify my conclusion or my claim, or I prove my conclusion or my claim with what? With evidence. I use evidence to do that. So it's the evidence that is giving justification or giving support or proving where I'm able to what? The conclusion. I hope it's better now.
Yes, please explain.
Excellent. Let's go on. Everyone, when I say look on the screen, please do it. We learn by seeing, hearing, touching, participating, and thinking all at once. You have to be able to do all at once by the grace of God. It helps to stick the coordination. Okay. So let's do. When I say look on the screen, don't be trying your things on the line whilst listening to the lecture. It's not good for me. I won't be there to say, hey, come and sit down. But it's a university, so we are watching. We take it that the people we are dealing with are mature, they are grown-ups. Okay, right after school, you hold offices and make decisions for people and their lives. Okay, so we can move on now. Very good. Now, our friend, so Francis helped us read the two types of arguments. But because I have not gone to the types of arguments will happen, in unit, we'll engage it a bit more detailed in unit 6. have a more detailed discussion, I should say, in Unit 6. We are now doing Unit 3. There is no Unit 4 content to discuss. So our next discussion will be Unit 5. Then we'll go to Unit 6. But even at this stage, if you quickly get in mind, how do I say it? Note it, or put it in the fridge, the way I joke about. This very important distinction between the two types of argument. It will help you when you are about to prepare a stew. You just go into the freezer there and pull that your stock that you have already put there, and you're good to go. So hear it now and hide it somewhere in the fridge. The two types of arguments. So far, Francis's question helped us emphasize the two parts, the parts of an argument, what makes up an argument, conclusion and premises. So the example Francis read for us, example 1, shows us that what the person wants to say, the claim, the conclusion is what? She writes exam, referring to Amma. That's what the person wants to say. The long talk is about telling me that Amma writes exam, which is the conclusion there. Look. But if I ask, on what basis do you say what you are saying? What is your grounds for saying that? What justification do you offer for this claim? What is the supporting premises for this claim? She will say, oh, all students write exams, and I'm a student. And next time I say, let's school for United exams. I'm also a school, in any better exams. What I'm doing now is arguing. What's the conclusion? She writes exam. The second one, too, the same thing. The person wants to say, mother is hospitable. My mother is hospitable. That's what I want to say. My grounds being that most Ghanaians are hospitable, and she too is a Ghanaian. So she writes exam. Sorry, she's hospitable. Then I quickly told you that, look at example 1. If you were to accept it to be true, if, it doesn't mean it is true necessarily, but if it were true that 1, all students write exams, and it were also true that Amma is a student, these two premises, if they were all true, then you realize that the conclusion she writes exam will necessarily be true by force. If all the two earlier ones were true, who be paying my exams? The Amma who is school there, the one who my exams. I just did a translation there to bring people home. Not everybody that is with us yet, but God will bring all of us here. Listen, if it were true that all students write exams, and it were also true that Amma is a student, then it becomes necessarily true that she writes exams, because what all students do, and Amma is a student, is what Amma would do, necessarily, if it were true that all students write exams. It may not be true, but if it were true. So the first one, the first argument on your screen, depicts what we would call a deductive argument. It's a deduction. Why? Because the conclusion she writes exams is taken from, deduce, you took it from the premises. It's already part of the premises. You only separated, brought it out. That is why for such an argument, the one we call deduction, as soon as you accept the premise as true, it will mean necessarily that you have already accepted the conclusion. You can't accept the premises to be true, then you want to reject the conclusion as also true. You say, no, that's why the conclusion is not true. There will be a contradiction, there will be a tension the way you are speaking. You will become like the person who says a bachelor has beaten his own wife. Now we can't speak with you again, it's absurd. Okay? So what? So if you have an argument and you call it a deduction, then it simply means its premises, if true, will require conclusion also to be true. That will be a valid deduction. You have deduced correctly. Sometimes, some people may be trying to deduce deduction, but they don't do it correctly. They don't deduce appropriately. So it is a deduction, but invalidly done, incorrectly done. Okay. That is what we call an invalid argument. So what have we emphasized so far? The parts of an argument, conclusion, premises. That's all the other names it has. Then on this slide, we have helped ourselves take note of what? Two types of arguments that persist or pertains. What are they? Deductive argument or a deduction versus an inductive argument or an induction. The first example of an argument on our screen there is helping us know premises and how to distinguish it from conclusion. But at the same time, it serves as a good example of an argument that is deducing its conclusion from its premises. The second example on our screen, on the other hand, also helps us know premises and how to distinguish it from conclusion. But in addition to that, it gives us a good example of the type of argument that we call inductive. Why inductive? You could accept all the premises there. The premises are most Ghanaians are hospitable. My mother is a Ghanaian. Both of them are premises. You can accept them to be true. Let's take it for granted that it were true because not all Ghanaians are hospitable. In fact, maybe not most Ghanaians are hospitable. Maybe my mother is not a Ghanaian. Maybe she's Swedish. But let's grant it to be true. Let's just take it to be true that most Ghanaians are hospitable. And then the second premise is what? That my mother is a Ghanaian. If we granted these premises to be true, would we necessarily have to say therefore that she's hospitable? Do we have grounds, adequate grounds, justification to say therefore she's hospitable? I want a response from the class. Chorus 1.
No, please. No.
I heard yes and no, so okay, said no. We can't. Very good. We can't.
No.
Because if most Ghanaians are hospitable and my mother is a Ghanaian, must it necessarily mean that she is part of the most? Most doesn't mean all. There's an exception. And my mother could be an exception to that set of most people. Okay. So the concluding part, which is what? She is hospitable, doesn't necessarily follow from the given premises, even if we granted the premises to be true. That is why the second argument on our screen there will be called an inductive argument. You are inducing, you are forcing, like when we say induced vomiting. Means the person didn't plan to vomit, but you can give them palm oil or something because they've taken in poison to force the vomit out so that they can come out with the poison. Okay, so it's an induced conclusion. You are forcing the conclusion onto the premise. And I always say this, if you are playing the record, you've heard me say that. Just like some sisters force themselves on some brothers. The brother hasn't said that they love them, that they are forced. Will force. It will help you remember. It will help you remember inductive argument. Any questions so far? I'll pause and take them. I see Maxwell J's hand. I see Randolph's hand. Let me take Randolph first. I think his hand went up earlier. And afterwards, I will take Maxwell J. If you have a question, you just don't look how to raise your hand. I want to help people remember again. You will look at the top icons on your screen. At the top, you see the chat. You see the raise hand. You see the react, the smiley there. The one you see on WhatsApp, the face. You see other things there. Look for the hand, the palm that is open like this, and click on it. When you click on it, I will see your hand raised up here. Okay? And you will see that it is highlighted, telling you that your hand is up. The woman is seeing your hand. Okay? When you finish, or you think that your question has been dealt with, when you click on the same thing, it will go off, and then I'll not see your hand. That's how I do it. Okay? All right. Very good. Let me take Randolph first, then I'll take Maxwell J. Dangote's hand is up, Junior, and then Anaya Jiswa. Randolph, go ahead. Please, you're muted. Sorry, Randolph. So unmute first.
I don't have any.
You don't have any question. Okay, your hand was up. Let's take Maxwell J. Yeah. So lower your hand now, Randolph. Okay.
Right. Okay, Mom, please, I want to know that is it necessary to come out when a statement is given to come out whether the statement is true or not true?
I don't get the question. Can you ask it again, please? We are talking statement. So you ask it again. I'll know if you mean argument or statement. Okay. What's the question again?
Yeah, I mean argument statement.
Okay, an argument
I'm
is
asking
not
that,
one statement.
is it
Okay, finish.
okay? So I'm asking, no, yeah, I'm not finished. I'm asking that in argument, is it necessary to find out that what the person is talking about is true or not?
Okay, let me explain. When we say argument, we are trying to determine the type, whether it is a deduction or an induction. We want to look at the relationship between what the person said, the claim or the conclusion, and the evidence the person offered, the reasons the person gave to support that claim. So we are asking ourselves, if we even took the reasons to be true, I'm in my office and come and tell me, Doc, your personal assistant or whatever, I want to use something that your secretary was the last person who left. Look on my screen now, I'm projecting another one. Was the last person who left the building yesterday. This is a roommate telling me that, or a TA. Says, look, the security man was the last person who left the building yesterday. So he stole the project leader's laptop. This is an argument. The person has brought a reason why he or she is drawing a certain conclusion. We are supposed to determine whether if the premise were true, see, if it were true, will the conclusion that has been drawn necessarily follow from it? That is your work as a critical thing. If it were true that the security man was the last person who left the building, maybe it is not true, actually speaking. But if it were true, would it ground the conclusion that therefore he stole the project leader's laptop? I want a chorus answer, everyone.
No.
No.
Very good.
No.
Very good. Exactly.
No.
Exactly. That is you.
No
Thank you
plan.
all very much. That's you. That is what we are trying to do. Okay. Because sometimes people act because they saw an evidence. Okay. But your ability to interrogate the given evidence, the reason, by saying that, okay, let me grant it to be true. That he was the last person who left the room yesterday. Must I be obliged to say, therefore, that by force he stole the laptop? Not necessarily. The owner could have been the one who stole his own laptop. The owner. Have an open mind, I'm telling you. The owner could have been the one who stole it. Hey, Judas betrayed Jesus with a kiss. Kiss is meant to show affection and love. He was kissing the guy. It was a betrayer. So a critical mind is not taken in by gullible. It's not gullible. Hey, this is your guy. Even the person telling that I saw the guy, I saw him with your secretary. Oh, it's not good. What he's doing, they shouldn't do that. What he's telling you may have some truth in it. In fact, they may be playing around at your back. Your roommate, your friend, and ladies, your friend may be playing around with your guy. It may be true. The one telling you may be telling you truth, but have you checked the intention? You see, what is the intention for her telling you? Sometimes it is not because they genuinely are looking out for your interest and want you to correct something. Sometimes they are telling you for you to know that you are like them, no, who don't have anybody. That's the intention, proper. So your ability to, examine the given evidence. Look, yesterday I was engaging my philosophy class. I was teaching them contingency, tautology versus contradiction. We're doing elements of formal logic, proper, not this hour. What you are doing, all of us are doing critical, it's just baby logic. We're doing that. I said, look, the devil said something to the folks in the garden. And I want to believe that most Christians don't read that part of the Bible. If you don't do Bible, don't worry. You can always Google it and see. Maybe if you do Quran or how's the scripture for clarification or something, it's fine. Just Google and see. You see what I'm saying. He said, if you eat the fruit, this is the devil supposedly presenting himself in the form of the snake, telling that the woman, if you eat it, you will be like God. Did the enemy lie? What is lie? A lie. A lie is not necessarily the opposite of truth. Because there's contingency. A lie could be a perverted truth. There is truth in what the person is saying, but truth that is manipulatively seeking an agenda. That is why if you think that what the person is saying is not true, I will be a problem. The so-called seer, I mean, they are genuine people of God that see, but there are others that are not genuine. But what they are telling you, there might be truth in it. And the thing is coming from who? What is the agenda? So it can be truth, perverted. Why am I saying all those? I want you to know how to examine evidence and reason. Don't say, oh, the things they told me, this man, which he told me has come true. So what? So it makes it genuine. What about the girl that was saying so much about the disciples then? And telling that these people are from God and this and this. You think what? It wasn't true, it was truth. But why did the disciples silence that child? There's a reason. Because there is a perversion. She's distracting attention from the mandate. That man was there, the disciple was there for something else. She's getting attention as if she's able to acknowledge and determine who is from God and who is not from God. You have to discern and see through it. And it is not anything even spiritual. It has to be a mind that critically examines matters to see through it. So the enemy didn't lie. He only perverted the truth because he had a high agenda. How do I know that? Some few verses after that, God appears. And after everything, you know what they say. Now you can read Genesis 3 as a textbook, as a reference text. Just read it. He said, the man, I think, and the woman, I suppose, have become like us. It is in the Bible. You don't read it. So if people quote that, they'll tell you Bible is confused, or the devil was rather the one who was wrongly dealt with, and blah, 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 blah. Evidence. Examining evidence is all we are saying. He said he has become like us. Does it mean when God said, I made them in my image and my likeness, he didn't make them like him? No, he did. But which connotation of likeness was at play? And which other connotation of likeness was God now alluding to in agreement with the enemy? And why he went to punish? That they have now become like us. What did the enemy say? Don't mind him. If you eat, you'll be like him. So did the enemy lie? Perhaps not. Perhaps he only perverted the truth. Did God lie to them that I made you in my image and likeness, and yet now he's saying they have become like me?
Wow.
No, he didn't.
Wow.
You see the point? Excellent. It's critical thinking. God has inspired us a little. But you have to see through. So don't get too all over the place. Meaning, when someone comes to tell you, Brian, wait there, what he has done. Maybe he has done something which is hurting your relationship, but you can redeem it. Because the person telling you may have perversion. He's only perverting the truth for an agenda. Okay. So just to react to my friend who asked about the evidence, look at this one. The fact that the security, look, people go and shoot themselves somewhere just to show that the nation is chaotic. There's insecurity. So if someone comes to report a case, women can cry. I'm a woman, so let me talk for us. I can come and tell you how so sad I am and cry and be so bitter. You won't even listen to the man. And so now I may be the one at fault. You're a critical man. Don't be taking in like that. Affection, love, do it, but then remain objective. Look at the matters. That's what our judges do. I respect them, especially the female judges. It's difficult. When you look at someone's son, you have a son like that, and say that he's sentenced to maybe 26 years imprisonment. You think it's easy? Pray for them. It's not easy. But you have to maintain objectivity as much as you can and interrogate the matter before you and look at all the possible sides. That is what argumentation is doing, and critical thinking. You and I are polishing our skill at engaging the given evidence. So sometimes, if you took the evidence given to be true, if you said this were true, I'm just taking it to be true. It may not be true, but let me even grant it that it were true. Will it require of me then to accept the conclusion? Some arguments are like that. And that is an example of the second one, again on your screen. Every registrar of the University of Ghana is a member of staff of UG. If you're a registrar at UG, then you are a member of staff. That's what it has. Every registrar at UG, University of Ghana, is a member of staff. The next premise says, Mrs. Otu Aye is a registrar of the Faculty of Humanities of UG. It would then, if these were true, I said if. I've said the if several times because students don't want to hear if. It's a conditional statement. If you love me, then obey. The if is antecedent. Something must be there before the obedience follows. If you're just obeying without the loving, you and the one who is walking around doing all the so-called good things are not different. And it doesn't please the one that said that. Love him first. Let the giving emanate from your love for him. That is what matters. If you wash my car, then I'll give you 10 Ghana. You haven't washed the car. They say, Doc, you say you give me 10 Ghana. I've been waiting and the 10 Ghana is not coming. Did you hear if? If you study, then if you have a passport, then they will stamp it with a visa. Okay. So where are we? I was saying that if it were true that all registrars of UG were members of staff, and it was also true that Mrs. Otuaye is the registrar of the Faculty of Humanities. The second premise, actually, as we speak now, is not true. That fine woman there is our college secretary. Very hardworking, pleasant woman to be with. Okay. But the point is, if the two were true, then you would realize that the conclusion that then she is a member of staff necessarily follows. You can't accept those two premises as true. And then when the conclusion she is a member of staff is given to you, you say, no, I accept the premises as true. By your conclusion, no. The conclusion is the money inside the envelope. The premise is the envelope. The conclusion is the cash inside it. The reason why you are opening your hands to receive the envelope is because of what is inside it. Take note of that. So if you take home the envelope, oh, God bless you, man of God, and they give you the envelope, when you are going, so I received an envelope. It's not an envelope, paper and concern. It's what is inside. The conclusion is in it. Now you receive the envelope means you have received the conclusion. That's the nature of deduction. You ask the pregnant woman into your room, the premise, that is, you accept her as true, take her in. You have already brought in the baby. Why? Because the baby is part of the pregnant woman's being. The premises of a deductive argument is like that. You accept the premises as true, you already have taken home the conclusion with you. That is why you can't say premises are true, yet the conclusion coming with it, you say it is false. That creates a contradiction for a deductive argument. For an inductive argument, there is no contradiction created because the relationship between the premises and the conclusion for induction, like the example 3 on your screen, is not a necessary one. So it is possible for the premises to be true, and yet that conclusion you are drawing may not follow. If you got this, you are done with unit 6. You will just practice it when you get there. So we're just introducing ourselves to argument, knowing the parts, knowing the types. Then we have gone further to even do some fine examples to help you understand. Thank you so much. Let me take Maxwell J's question, and I'll come to Ajimai and then Nathaniel AK. Maxwell, go ahead with your question.
Sorry, that was my question. So it has been answered.
Yeah. Excellent. So your hand is still up. White. Let me take Ajimai's hand.
All right.
You say. Ajimai, Kawo, your hand is still up. If a jingle is not ready, we'll move on and come back when the hand comes activated. Okay, so examples of argument continued. So many of them for you to practice and practice and practice. That's why they are there. Bats are mammals. I would ask somebody to tell me whether it is a deduction or an induction. First, someone will tell me which part of the supposed argument on your screen is the conclusion. That is, what is the person actually saying? And which part is the premises? How is the person grounding what they are saying? Then we can do our critical thinking together and examine the connection between what is presented as evidence and what is supposedly the conclusion. We'll look at that together. Okay, so look at it very well. Bats are mammals and they can fly. So some mammals can fly. That's the first one. Well, I put answers there. I hope not. The administrator will arrive on time since she's never been late a day in her life. Okay. What I tell you there is that both examples are arguments because both attempt to show that a conclusion is true by by offering premises in support of it. So at least you know that they are arguments. Now tell me what the conclusion is in example 1. Maybe I should ask a chorus answer. When I ask respond there, I'm trying to hear. If I hear a lot of wrong answers, then I know that I have to do some job. That's why sometimes I ask for chorus answers. Okay. So tell me what the conclusion is in example 1.
Deduction arguments.
Okay, what I'm asking first and foremost is, look at example 1. What is the conclusion of that argument? Okay.
Bats are mammals.
Mammals can fly. So some mammals can fly.
Bats are mammals.
Okay.
So some mammals can fly.
So some mammals can fly.
All right, thank you all very much.
Has 4 legs, so they are mammals.
Well
So
done.
mammals
Well done. It's fine. Now, I had, I think, just one tiny little wrong inside from two brothers. So I would want to react. Look at, but the rest were all correct. Remember how we detect our conclusion. We use the indicator words. So, see, that's so here. So, so, then what follows the so? The so is not included in the statement, but what follows it? It is pointing to something, it's an indicator. When you are driving, it indicates that. It means you are showing me that you are showing the person after you where you are driving towards. Okay, so it's an indicator. The so points to the conclusion. So the conclusion, and remember, there is always only one conclusion. That's very important. Even if there were sub-conclusions, it will always be ultimately one conclusion. If you fish out your conclusion, then the rest become premises. Your work is done easily that way. Okay. So here, the conclusion is some mammals can fly. That's the conclusion. How do we know it is so? Okay. Now, I want to say some mammals can fly. What is my reason or my justification for saying that? Well, I say, oh, but bats are mammals. And they can fly. So I have reason to believe that what? At least some means not all. Some mammals can fly. Do you realize why that is a deduction, like your friend said earlier? It is. If it were true that bats are mammals, and it were true that they can fly, then it has to necessarily be true that some mammals, remember bats, can fly. That is what makes this reasoning deductive. Granted that the premises were true, the conclusion necessarily follows. Does someone have a question with that? Then we look at the second one. The second one says, the administrator will arrive on time since she's never been late a day in her life. Please tell me, what is the conclusion? First, I'll take your question. What's the conclusion of our second argument? All of us. I want a chorus answer.
She's never been
The
late.
administrator will
arrive on
time.
All right.
She's never been late a day in her life.
Merriman, thank you.
Please share your screen again.
Okay, now it's fine, don't worry. Now I mute all. Okay, now listen. it's good I ask with a chorus. Look at the indicator word here. Yes, the indicator word here is sense. The indicator word in the earlier one was so. So shows you conclusion. Sense shows you premise. So I'm going to ask again. People are allowed to change their voting. you can change your voting pattern. The first one, we clearly saw that the conclusion is some mammals can fly. The second one, I've still asked you to tell me what is the conclusion. I want your chorus answer.
The administrator will
arrive on time.
Very good. Very good. Now you see that people change their voting pattern. Well done, everyone. You know, today the Ketu people voted for Bantama, and the Bantama not people joined the Ketu side. You see that people change their voting now. So you can tell, if you know the indicator, well, look at your screen now, you will know that the sense showed you the premise rather. So if I'm looking for the conclusion, it will be the first part. It means conclusion and premise is not about which came first. No, it's about how the person is speaking, and where we are lucky to have indicator words, which word is indicating what. As soon as we see the indicator words in an argument, it may not be in an argument, then it's not something else. If we put indicator words in an argument, it helps us know whether we are dealing with a conclusion or a premise. So this one, the person is saying actually that the administrator will arrive on time. Then we ask her, what is your justification for saying that? He said, oh, but she has never been late a day in her life. Now, I want to know, is this reasoning inductive or deductive? What you should say is this. Ask yourself, if it were true that she's never been late in her life, that's the premise. If we assume the premise to be true, will it necessarily mean that the conclusion that the administrator will arrive on time would also be true? So because you are at a distance and I can't see your I want to know whether the reasoning is I or D. I for induction and D for D. Yes, induction. Oh, I should we share the screen? I'm coming. Yo, they've gone ahead of us, my brother. They didn't wait for us. I'm resharing. Hold on. Last time somebody said you go to buy good phones. Oh, there they go. Okay, I think you can see now. Okay. So it is an induction, like most of you said. Yes, because today may be the first time that the administrator will come to work late. Yes. Today may be her first time. Yesterday must not necessarily be like tomorrow or today. So it's possible that she will be late for the first time today, or maybe she's dead. So she won't even be alive to do what she did all the time. You're a critical mind. Hey. Yes, but she's coming, then an accident, so she's dead. That's why she's not in. You see, so that yes, yes. So the point is, coming. For the first one, it is a deduction, D for Daniel. But the second example, the administrator one that we see, is induced. Maybe highly likely that she will be like the way she's always been and be on time. But there's still the probability, the chances that it could turn out to be false. So the second one is not a certainty, even if the premises were assumed to be true. The first one is a matter of certainty if the premises were true. That's why deduction, validly done, if you do it validly, is a proof. The language we use is proof. Whilst for induction, it is what? Confirmation. You may make a note of that somewhere. It's like deduction proves, D for Daniel, deduction proves its conclusion with the premises. Okay, that is if you have a valid deduction. I told you sometimes the deduction is not validly done. We'll learn that the former fallacy later in Unit 6. If it is validly done, the correct deduction, then the premises will be a proof. Waterproof, it means it cannot be false. Water cannot enter, proof. Okay, so it will be a proof. The language proof It's not used for induction, because an induction can be false. From the security man was the last person who left the room, therefore he stole the laptop. 2, the one we just addressed, the second, the whatever, the administrator has never been late, so she will be on time. You know, that kind of reasoning. They are all induced. You know how some people say, oh, this man has never been caught stealing. How can you say he's a thief? Then with my tiny little critical mind, I sit and laugh. I say, how? This minister has never been so calm. He has never been caught stealing. How can you people say, hey, sir, has never been caught? Oh, that is a small brain at work. Must you catch someone before the person becomes? He might not be a thief, genuinely, but he may be, just not caught. Okay, so now we can move on. So we can now, even lectures too. I'm a lecturer, so let me, oh yes. Oh, he's so and so cannot be. That is a very weak critical mind. You don't go around being suspicious of everyone. No, that's not good. If you are suspicious, you will see things that are not there. You see, ladies, sometimes when we are in the bush and the place smacks of having snakes or something there hasn't been any snake. You hear grrr, then you are jumping. It is not there, it's in your illusions. The idealist will say you have created a reality in your mind. Okay. And so there might be nothing, and you go witch hunting, looking for something that is not there. If you are not careful, you will find something there, but the thing is not real. Okay. However, whereas we don't want to be going around being suspicious and mistrusting and all that, we can't also be gullible, trusting everything and everyone, whereas it is in skirts or trousers. No, you have to be rational, a critical mind that soberly reflects. Remember lecture 1, suspends judgment. Everybody say, we caught him. This one, he was holding the food, red-handed. He pulled it from the sister's pocket at the bus stop there. Thief. If you are there, you should exert calmness. Don't let the guy go. No, maybe he was a thief. But don't apply instant justice because you are so certain that I've got a thief. Who told you? The sister can, oh yes, the sister can tell the brother, oh, please help me pull my phone from my back pocket here. I'm climbing up into the car so that someone doesn't take it. So he just does that. And then the sister says, because she has tried. Johnny Bravo is not saying yes to her proposal. Johnny Bravo loves her, obviously, and not her. She can set him up and do that to him. Now, boy, now. You won't get, which I won't get. Everybody saw Johnny Bravo pull the phone from sister's back pocket. And everybody said, this one, we saw him gunny. You have got it. You won't allow the brother to say anything. Yes, you won't allow him to say anything. If you kill him instantly, or you beat him to the death. You see, so a critical mind is sober. Allow time. That's all. But it doesn't mean let the person go because you are not sure. And it doesn't mean mistrust people either. Okay. Soundness and validity is on your screen now. These ones are also for you to just make a note of. When we go doing our Ponche Kakra later and we are looking for our stock in the fridge, we bring all out for our go-to in week 6. Okay. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. This is an argument. We know the conclusion already by now. Socrates is mortal. The premises are all men are, and Socrates is a man. So we can tell that this is a good, fine example of a deduction. The second one, the same. All human beings have feathers. Socrates is a human being. So what we know about all human beings will apply to him as well. So Socrates will have feathers. Both of them are valid deductions. If we get to Unit 6, you will see their name. I have given you one pattern throughout intentionally so that you can pick that form. I've showed you how to teach. Its definition, you make it meaningful. So the one we have used so far is modus ponens. Don't worry, you will learn it in Unit 6. You still have Unit 5. So modus ponens, that pattern is what we have studied so far. So this is also valid, a valid deduction. However, see, there is a distinction between the first one and the second one, which I'm helping you see. For the first one, look at the premises. They are all true, actually speaking. Now I'm answering, I think it was one of the gentlemen said, actually, in observation, in natural world, all men die. Mortality means they die. All men die. So that's true, actually speaking, by observation. And it is actually true that Socrates is a man. He was a Greek philosopher. Yeah? So Socrates is a man. Both premises, therefore, are true, actually speaking. So in example 1, it is not only true that the argument is valid and it's a deduction that is validly done. It's a deduction. But also all the premises are true. That kind of argument is called a sound argument. It's sound. Okay, so soundness is a higher quality than validity or valid deduction. Okay, when you deduce correctly, that's what we mean by valid deduction. And then the premises of that argument are all actually true. Then we will say that argument is not only valid, but it is sound, the higher quality reasoning. Okay. For the second one on your screen, it is a deduction, validly done, but the premises are not actually true by observation. If you were checking human actual existence, all human beings don't have feathers. Human beings don't have feathers. Maybe some do, or some fly. But all human beings have feathers. It's not actually true. Even though the reasoning pattern, the relationship, the valid deduction, I've explained that already. But it is not true that human beings have feathers. So this is a valid deduction, example 2, the valid deduction, but its premises are not true. Not all the premises are true. So it is valid, but it is not sound. Whereas example 1 is valid, it's a deduction. I even named it for you. It's a modus ponens, pattern of reasoning. It's valid, it's a valid deduction. Yet, for example 1, it's sound because the premises, all of them are true. But for example 2, there is a false premise, even though the argument is valid. So example 2 is valid, but it is not sound. And we'll go back to these again when we go to unit 6. Now some trial question. This is a trial question. There's an argument. There is no indicator word anywhere. But if you're a critical mind and you read it, you will know which one is the conclusion and which ones are the premises. It is important that UG actively encourages older people to remain within the workforce. Older people often have rare skills and useful attitudes that are wasted when they leave the workforce early. Moreover, staying on longer in full-time or part-time work is believed to be good for the health. Besides, it's unrealistic to expect savings and pensions to be sufficient to meet the needs of people retired for 40 years or more. Look at it very well. What is the person trying to say? And then which ones are the premises that the person is using? I see Portia Forgio's hand up. I think it was her question. Portia, I'll take it shortly. Somebody react to what I asked on the screen quickly. We'll do verbal dispute and we're out. Maybe I should just tell you that. See, the first statement tells you something. It says, it is important that University of Ghana actively encourages older people to remain within the workforce. UG must make a conscious effort to keep older people in the system so that they don't go for retirement early. Why? You see that? Why? Because. So the because is implicit. It's not explicitly written there, but it's inside. Look, because older people often have skills that are not common, rare skills and useful attitudes. I mean, they've seen it all in life. Not you and I who are just that. Look, what the dog will see and back, whoa, 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 whoa. The cat will see and she, the one who are cleaning. It is you and I that think that we have now arrived fresher. I'm not a fresher, though. Yeah, I'm university. The older people in the system. This one, we see we don't see plenty. It doesn't do us anything. So that's the person's argumentation. Just putting flesh to it. So they have useful attitudes those attitudes become wasted when they leave the workforce early. This is the first argument of the person supporting what they claim that UG must keep the older people in the workforce longer than it is now. See the second argument. Moreover, the person is adding to their support. Staying on longer in full-time or part-time work is believed to be good for their health. Besides, it is unrealistic to expect savings and pensions to be sufficient to meet the needs of people retired for 40 years or more. The point is, if they retire at 60 and God gives them extra 40 years, because some die after 100 years, how are they going to be sustained by their savings and pensions for that number of years? Sufficiently, that's the problem. Look at the health condition of people as they get diabetes, na BP, na amnesia, you leave your grandma at home. I've left her food. Everyone is there to take her. Before you hear, she's at the junction there. How did she get there? Oh, she's going. Maybe she's going to washroom. She has read junction. We all get there. If God even is gracious unto us. Okay, so the person can have different sicknesses that one medicine alone. That's why the pensioners thing currently in Ghana, it gives me heartbreaks. And we should all pray that whatever it is that has to be done, we shouldn't bring pensioners in it. Not at all. They are vulnerable. Critical thinking, practical reasoning. We are making our kid. It can't go there. We should look for vibrant people who are well to do and treat them whatever the reason is. Our elderly folks should be quickly dealt with. I mean, they should go and serve them some fines and take them to some spa and relax them. Say, look, we have paid your thing. Than holding placards and standing out there. It's a shame to all of us, regardless. Okay. So I'm saying that this person's argumentation, all the three, are in support of the first statement. Any questions? Or just ask your question, then I'll take Dennis, and then we'll finish with a verbal dispute and substantive disagreement. That one will do it in some 2 minutes. Some maybe 5, 10 minutes, and we are done. Go ahead. Portia, go ahead. I cannot hear you. I don't know if you are speaking, but I see your microphone is unmuted. Portia.
Example, bats are mammals and they can fly. So some mammals can fly. What if the conclusion was so all mammals?
Portia, please, I ask you a question. I missed a good part of what you were saying.
Okay, let me start again.
Okay.
I'm saying the first example. Yes. Examples of argument.
Yes.
But mammals and they can fly. So some mammals can fly. What if the conclusion was so all mammals can fly? Would that argument pass for invalid?
Yes, it would have been invalid. So you maybe want to call it inductive, but we'll discuss the deduction and induction later. Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry, I kept you waiting for a while. You are welcome. Let's take Dennis now, and then I'll come back to Francis. I see Brianna. Go ahead, Dennis. Very quickly, then we do the last mop-up. Dennis, unmute, please, unmute. If Dennis is not ready, let's take Francis, go ahead. Then I'll take Brianna, and then we'll come to Maxwell J. Very quickly.
Okay, my question is that based on the trial question that was uploaded here, I want to ask that if you are writing an argument or making an argument, can you use it based on your own words, or you should take it from the context?
Oh, argument is just the passage as created, whether they gave it to you or you created it. Your claim must be clear, then the reasons or evidence you are giving to support that claim must be clear. So if I'm giving it to you, I'll give you clarity. You will know what I'm saying and how I'm grounding it. If you are creating an argument, you should be able to do that. Show us what you want to say and how you support what you are saying. By the way, you said it. And that
okay,
it's not any hard feelings. All right, let's take Maxwell J. And then Brianna. Maxwell, you're muted, please. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. But I just want to confirm this, and yeah, I'm absent. Yeah, so it means that the premises and then the conclusion are very important in making arguments.
They are the parts of the argument. It's like the head and the tail.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Let's take Brianna now, and we'll do the final lap. Everyone, hold on. You've done well so far. We are finishing with the last part of the unit.
Okay, so please, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Brianna.
Please, my question was, okay. With the example, all human beings have feathers.
Yes.
Socrates is human, so I've forgotten the conclusion. I mean, but with that example,
it's on your screen.
I was saying,
projected it.
Okay, yes.
That.
All human beings have feathers. Yes, Socrates is a human being, so Socrates has feathers. You see, with this one, the first premise was false.
Yes, and that's the only reason why.
The second premise was actually.
We want all premises to be
why
true.
Why don't we call it inductive?
No, it's a deduction.
Since one premise is false.
No, it's what makes an argument a deduction is not whether the premise is true or false. It is if it were true. If it were true that all human beings have feathers, and it was also true that Socrates is a human being, would it then, so the two premises together, if they were true, would it have made the conclusion also necessarily true? We say, oh yes, if it were true that all human, that's just the pattern. It's interested in the form. Look at it. All human beings have feathers. And Socrates is a human being. If you plot this on the Venn diagram, all human beings have feathers. The circle of all human beings will be inside the rectangle of all things that have feathers. So all human beings have feathers, and Socrates is a human being. Then what is true of all human beings would have been true of Socrates also, which is that what Socrates has feathers. That is the logic of it. So it would have been deductive. But when we establish the deductive nature of it, then we ask ourselves, okay, now let's check if actually it is true or false. Then we go and check. And all human beings actually had feathers. And Socrates is a human being actually. Then it would have been a higher quality. It will say, oh, it's not just deductive, but it's also what sound. That is what is happening in the first
instance. Okay.
We'll practice more that one in Unit 6. Okay. Here, all we are trying to know is argument, premise, conclusion, the types. But because we are working with it, you see that by the time you get to Unit 6, you ask for premise and conclusion, you have it like fingertips. But you would already also have known how to do the distinction, and then you build on it. All right. Thank you so much. Let me see if I can take another one. Oh, Brian, you're welcome. Brian, so we will now move on to the very last lap of our presentation today, and it has to do with two ways of thinking of a disagreement. What are we equipping ourselves with as critical thinkers? We are looking at tools, techniques, skills, methods, instruments that help us to examine, evaluate, judge, reason, and speeches. That's what critical thinking is about. And then we do it by inculcating or including what? Practical reasoning. That's the whole course. So another thing a critical mind must be wary of, also dealing with language. The first 3 units are on language and its use. Then the second set of units will be on reasoning and argumentation. And the last one will be on fallacies and so on, errors in how we reason. Okay, so you should take note of something else as a critical mind. Know that when two people seem to be disagreeing in the way they are arguing, they are disputing or disagreeing, the disagreement may be either verbal, on your screen now, verbal from the word verb, language, or it may be substantive. Look on my screen. The disagreement will border on substance. something concrete, not just about the language. What is the language? Just because of how the two people are speaking. I think I had one or two interactions with some of your colleagues when they asked the question. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Francis. Very nice question he asked. I said, you said one thing, he said another thing differently. I said, oh, it wasn't different. So remember that, and then let's see if that can help us understand verbal dispute. A verbal dispute just means those two people who think they are disagreeing are not actually disagreeing about substance. They are saying the same thing substantively, but how they are saying it is different. And so they might be tempted to think they are saying two different things, the language. Okay, so there is some inconsistency in how they are speaking. So the dispute is about language, and that is why we can agree. Watch the screen. That's why there can be a stipulative definition to resolve it. The stipulative definition, remember the types of definitions, means a meaning that we have agreed on. It might not be even how the word is used generically. Remember the biscuit? The boy says, little sister told elder sister, when you are coming, please buy me biscuit. The boy said, me to buy me some of the biscuits, but add drink to it. And then the sister started laughing at him because they are not using biscuit as everyone thinks of it, generally speaking, in the dictionary, the lexicon. They have stipulated, the ladies have stipulated that meaning for themselves. So they know they are not talking about biscuit that you use Coke to drink. No, Coke to eat. They are talking about another connotation of biscuit that they share. They have agreed on it. If you remember stipulative definition like that, if Banda say we are going to charge, it means something else. Don't go and get a charger and ask which phones are we charging. I brought chargers. You didn't get it. It's a stipulative definition. They have stipulated that. So if you remember that, now quickly come to verbal dispute. And let me show you why when the dispute is a verbal one, we can stipulate meaning. It is because substantively we are saying the same thing. The two people who are seemingly disagreeing are saying the same thing. Or better still, they are not pulling hairs about anything substantive. It's something that you can agree on and coin a word or coin a meaning to represent and then advance the discourse. You see that? So it wasn't really substantive. Take note of the three things I've said. What then is a verbal dispute? It's an inconsistency in the way the same words are used, using it inconsistently. So for example, she's a nurse, says Kofi. Then Kojo says, no, she's a health worker instead. She's a nurse. No, she's a health worker. Nurse, health worker. Nurse, health worker. If you go to your textbook, there are quite a number of examples. I would disagree. No, not substantive. Nurse is just another way of saying health worker. If I replace health worker in my passport, because I'm a nurse, they say, what occupation do I write health worker? And then I go for interview. They will not say, but you're a nurse and you say health worker. My health worker is what? Do they prompt? Yeah. So it can represent the same thing. So someone will just have to tell Kopi and Kojo that but nurses are health workers, and the two of them will say, and there will be no dispute again because the dispute bordered on language, how you are speaking. So you can stipulate meaning. How about the substantive disagreement? It is not just a mere language matter. Brothers and sisters, in the Lord, topic 1, definitions, value judgment, factual statement is heavily working here. What is a substantive disagreement? When disputants disagree because each side subscribes to contrasting values or we have in view different facts, then that dispute may never be resolved, may. If it is just because we have different facts, I have gone to the hospital to find out what child did my sister give birth to. Then the doctor gave me the file. But inside it is written female. Apparently, the nurse also recorded it and gave to the husband of my sister. What did he write inside? Male. So I have female from the doctor. That is the child that my sister has given birth to. The nurse has male. The same woman. She didn't give birth to twins. So if I go home and the family said, oh, sister, I said, oh, but she gave birth to a female. The husband said, no, it was male. I said, female. He said, male, female, male. We may be engaged in what? A substantive disagreement. But this is not the one that you can't resolve. You can easily resolve. How? Call the doctor or call the hospital. Or wait, they will bring the child home. And we will all see which child was given birth to, whether male or female. So it's this type which borders on different facts available to us. It's resolvable. It's still substantive because it's not just language we are disagreeing over. You see that? It's about substance, concrete content. But it is the type of substantive disagreement that can be resolved by what? Introducing the extra facts that we need. What about if the disagreement is about values or opinions? So your textbook gave you some examples and you can reference them, quite a number of them. She is not a real Christian because she doesn't speak in tongues. That was the first one. The second person says, no, she's a real Christian because she was baptized at the United Church. It's in your textbook. One says she's not a real Christian because she doesn't speak in tongues. So this person thinks what should qualify you to be a real Christian is you're speaking in tongues. It's not a description, it's a prescription, valid. Another person said, oh, but she was baptized in our church, so she should qualify as a Christian. They are engaged in what? A substantive disagreement that borders on values, viewpoint, value judgment, remember. The brother says she's beautiful. The other brother says, oh, but beauty, be this, she the be. Is that the face that he says she the be? Who is right and who is wrong? Nobody. Beauty is not in the object. It is in the one observing, the beholder. So if the thing borders on value judgment, brothers and sisters in the Lord, we may never be able to resolve it. It may never be resolved. There will be different. So political parties will split because people think what should constitute a proper organization of the resources is property owning. The other person says, no, social democracy. If it's a church, there will be different denominations. One Bible, we have Friday service. Those who think it's Friday, those who think it should be Saturday, those who think it should be Sunday. Some say women can preach, others say women can preach. You can't eat fish that hasn't been scaled. Cover your hair before. You shouldn't wear men's. Charlie, one Bible. Look at the different denominations. People, you think it's about facts? Now can we all look and some are values, the interpretation people put to what they read. And so when you have a disagreement that is substantive and borders on values, contrasting values, it is argumentation. That is, you present reasons why your view must be taken by the alternative person. That is what argument is. You try to convince the person to see it your way. You don't force it. You don't stipulate meaning. You don't go and call Zelensky and Putin and say, going forward, this is what it must be. You lie. There will be problem. You create a mediator leading the interact. You have spoiled the case. Look at our upstairs in Ghana. Look at upstairs in Ghana here. If you were asked to go and lead a team to mediate or some small quarter plot land that some grandma left for you people, and you were supposed to share it. Oh, listen, please. Okay? And there's conflict there. If you are the family head or you are the crutch in the home there, have a mediator's posture. The disagreement may not just be, what does the law say? Let's look inside, read it. The third part. No. It may be about substance. The law is saying this, but I see it this way. It should have been this. The other person thinks, and if the matter is not one that is factual in nature, but it is a value judgment, then you would have to accommodate the various values in a way that may bring peace as much as you can. So argumentation is what you may use to attempt a resolution if the substantive disagreement borders on value judgment. Take note. Don't go and stipulate. So the woman has died. She had an adopted child that stayed with her. She has her own children, but she adopted one because she's a market woman, Makola woman, had clothes factories, what have you. And so this sister has been with her from her childhood, 7 years old, the way she's now 22 or something. the woman has passed. But when she's living, she's left property. See, this is practical reasoning. She's left property and she said that it's there for all my children. Listen. Then the woman's biological children, 3, have returned from Yankee, and they are coming to take their property because the woman's will says they are for my children. Now they want to share, they want to take out the adopted child. The adopted child said, but mama, she's my mother. Hello, mommy Jile. Oh, yeah, mama, I lived with her. She's my mother. Listen, the children said, they said the 3 is for children. He said, yeah, I'm a child. I'm a child of the woman. The other people say, you are not her child. We are her children. Hey. Now you think that this one, you go and take the dictionary and look for the definition of children. What is happening is what? A substantive disagreement that can bring blood down if you don't sit up as a family. Why? Who is a child? Children. The concept you are dealing with has what? Different connotations. This girl stayed with a woman all her life, did everything. When she was sick, the Yankee children were outside. Because she considered her as her mother, the mother she knows, and the woman considered her as a child. She stayed, even when Johnny Bravo came to marry her, she said, wait, my mother is not well. I'm the only one that takes care of her. What's na mommy who's Johnny Bravo's school in 3 years, waiting. Let me take care of her. Because she has stroke. I'm her child. Now that mommy has gone, mommy too says, everything I have are for my children. Share them amongst my children equally. What should happen is just the thing divided into 4. But the people now say, no, you are not a child. Because for them, a child of the mother should be the one that was biologically carried in her womb. Whilst for my other foster child that was adopted, a child of my mother should be the one who stayed and took care of her and mothered, the woman mothered her, became a mother to her, that is. So this is what? Not a verbal dispute about who a child of a mother is. Not a verbal dispute about the word children, no. It's a substantive disagreement. One thinks a child should mean this, the other thinks a child should mean that. Your assignment 1, which will be essays that I'll put into different, I'll create a pool of those essays, and then the system will randomize. Then the one that comes to you, answer. We'll test such things. Practical illustration, then you will think and write and respond to them. You're allowed to open books and refer and read around and all that. But when you finish, you do an independent work and submit. What else? Such things. That's critical thinking. Now you are the one that has been called to go and mediate this family feud, if you like. How do you mitigate it? What are your, the challenges you anticipate? How do you plan to resolve the matter? Since it is not something you are going to look for quotation, it's not 2 + 3 = 5, where you say, oh, but you got 2, so we have added 3, therefore you should be 5. No. It's a substantive disagreement. That one, last one from the textbook, and then I think I'm done. It says the African Americans are really American. That's the first person. Then the other person says, no, African Americans are really African. You think they are engaged in a verbal dispute between African and American? No, it's not verbal. It's substantive. One says African American is really real definition. Should mean, so African American should be considered American. The other person says, no. If he's an African American, then he should prescription, value judgment. He should be considered African. How do you resolve that? You can't stipulate meanings there. It's not a verbal dispute. Where it is a verbal dispute, you can agree that, okay, let's take it to mean this, and there won't be disputes because the people are saying the same thing, presenting it differently. But if I say an African American is an American, and you say an African American is an African, you think we are African and American are the same things? No. So it's not a verbal dispute about African Americanness. No, it is a substantive disagreement about what should constitute African American. And so we will have to argue I may say, oh, but they have the antecedent here, even their skin color, you know, and this and that should tell you that their root is here and your root should define you. Another person might say, no, I think that where they thrive now, that they have built a life and they don't eat Kobe with us. So how the person come and start eating Kobe and they are all groomed. So this is argumentation looking for how to what? Mediate the two. And that is what a substantive disagreement properly understood does. So now, Kofi says she's a nurse because she has a certificate from the training school on my screen now. Then Kojo says, no, she's not really a nurse because she does not care for her patients. You think that Kojo will be convinced if you go and bring all the certificates the lady has to show him? No, bring all the certificates in the world. You say, yeah, I see all the certificates. Yeah, I see her name on it. And so that's what Kojo has. So she's a real nurse. Then you say, I'm not looking for people who have certificates. That is how you define it, is factual statement. I'm not talking about how it is defined. I'm talking about how it should be defined. Prescription, value judgment. I think that if someone is a real nurse, then the person should take care of her patients. And that is what a real nurse should mean, not how you define it. So the disagreement here is a substantive one, bordering on value judgment. Finito. I'm done. You see end of lecture 2 because I put all together earlier. It's end of lecture 3 for you. Okay, we have done lecture 2 already. Precious, let me take your question, just that one, I think, and then I have to go. There's another class that is waiting for me. Quickly. Precious, quick.
Okay, mommy.
Yes.
I want to hear this question for the argument that we did. Let's say all A's are B's. Therefore, all B's are C's. Is it an induction or deduction?
We will do that in unit 6. First of all, you have only one premise leading to a conclusion. There's a missing premise there. So let's engage it fully in unit 6. Okay, then afterwards, you can ask me all the deduction. This is not a complete argument pattern yet. You gave me the the first premise, and you gave a conclusion. There is no, the second step is not, and it's understandable because you don't understand everything in deduction and induction. That's unit 6. Okay, we'll engage that in some detail. Is that okay? All right. All the best, everyone.
And also, hey, mommy.
I'm listening. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Others are waiting. I have to open the class for the next class, not even critical thinking.
Okay.
They don't know that I'm in a class like this. Yeah, I have to open it 10 minutes before chat so they get in. So go ahead quickly. Hey, you are the right. Right, Precious, are you done? Or you can send me the query directly. Okay, send it to me directly. I'll address
Madam,
it.
please, can
Thank
we
you
get
all
your
very much.
slides?
Oh, but the slides are
Thank
there.
you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Let me end the recording. Hey, my brother, all the slides are the same.